Hi, so today I'm reading to you from Freeman Square in the United Arts and Arts Museum Plaza, and behind me is a sculpture by Mark D. Cervero, and it is 8 tons, which 8 times 2,000, 16,000 pounds, and I just learned that it represents a bull, and it's called Helmholtz. And something cool about it is from an artist that lives in California, but I went to his sculpture park in New York State, upstate New York, and there are like so many of his sculptures there, so I'll put a link below so if you can want to see some pictures, and some of them you can sit on and they're just really cool. I don't know if I said it was his sculpture park, but it was a sculpture park with his work there, not just his sculpture park. I'm going to show you a picture of this. I've tried to move my camera so many times so you can see just how cool it is. And it's so pretty downtown right now. And you might have heard today is May 1st and some things are going to start opening back up. So this is awesome. So hopefully you'll be able to see some of the sculpture and the pretty trees and things. So this is called Cry Hard But Never Break by Ringtved, and it's illustrated by Charlotte Party, and the book is translated from Danish. In the far north, in a small, snug house, 4 children lived with their beloved grandmother, a kindly woman. She had cared for them for many years. Now she had a visitor. Not wishing to frighten the children, the visitor had left his scythe outside the door, so I don't know if you saw that picture. You can see the scythe. Oh, I didn't really show you that picture. All the same, they knew that it was death. Nels, the oldest, and his sister Sonia closed their eyes, heavy with sorrow. Casper, who was younger, tried to ignore the visitor, but Leah, the youngest, who was always getting into trouble, stared straight at death. In the quiet, the children could hear their grandmother upstairs breathing with the same raspy breath as the figure at the table. They knew death had come for her and that her time was short. I don't know if you see the picture. You can assume it's her and her husband. She's sleeping alone now, so we can assume he's passed away as well. Since everyone knows death only friend is night, the children quickly made a plan. They would keep death away from their grandmother by giving him coffee all through the night. At dawn, he would have no choice but to leave without her. So every time Death emptied his cup, Nels would say, "More coffee, sir?" And Death would nod. Death loved his coffee strong and black like the night, and he was happy to sit and rest for a while. At first, I don't know if Death had a face, but now we can see Death has a... Oh, I guess you can just see the nose, but now we see the face of an old man. Time passed. Finally, Death was ready. He placed his bony hand over his cup to signal no more. Then Leah, who had been watching Death all night, reached out and took his hand. "Oh, Death," she said, "our grandmother is so dear to us. Why does she have to die?" Some people say Death's heart is as dead and black as a piece of coal, but that is not true. Beneath his inky coat, Death's heart is as red as the most beautiful sunset and beats with great love of life. Do you notice when they're talking about the love, the girls are wearing red? I wonder if that was on purpose. Death wanted to help the children understand, so he said, "I would like to tell you a story." And in a strong, sweet voice, he began to speak. Once upon a time, so long ago that only I can remember, there lived 2 brothers. One was called Sorrow and one was called Grief. Woeful and sad, they moved up and down their gloomy valley. They went slowly and heavily because they never looked up. They never saw through the shadows to the tops of the hills. At the top of those hills, there lived 2 sisters, Joy and Delight. They were bright and sunny, and their days were filled with happiness. The only shadow was their sense that something was missing. They didn't know what, but they felt that they couldn't fully enjoy their happiness. Death saw Leah nodding and said, "I think you can guess what happens next." One day, the brothers and sisters met. Sorrow fell instantly in love with Delight, and she was with him. It was the same for Grief and Joy. Each couldn't live without each other. After their double wedding and a great celebration, the couples moved into neighboring houses halfway up and halfway down the hill. This was the distance to their old homes was the same. They all lived to be very old, so that's a good compromise. They weren't where the happy sisters were, and they weren't where the sad brothers were. They all lived to be very old. When the time came to die, grief and joy did so on the same day, as did sorrow and delight. Their happiness together had been so great that they couldn't live without each other. That's a good story, said Nels. It is the same with life and death. Death said, what would life be worth if there were no death? Who would enjoy the sun if it never rained? Who would yearn for the day if there were no night? The children weren't sure they had understood death fully, but somehow they knew he was right. You might have heard, you enjoy the spring after the long winter. At last, Death stood up. It was time to go upstairs. A line of pale gray was edging away the night. Casper wanted to stop Death, but Nels held him back. No, Nels said, life is moving on. This is how it must be. Moments later, the children heard the upstairs window open. Then in a voice, somewhere beneath a cry and a whisper, Death said, fly, soul, fly, fly away. They hurried upstairs. They tiptoed into their grandmother's room. Grandmother had died. The curtains were blowing in the gentle morning breeze. Looking at the children, Death said quietly, cry heart, but never break. Let your tears of grief and sadness help begin a new life. Then he was gone. Ever after, whenever the children opened a window, they would think of their grandmother. And when the breeze caressed their faces, they would feel her touch. I don't know if you see him looking out the window and then you see the breeze, but then you see what he's thinking about. I really like these drawings in here, or paintings. In the years that followed, the children lived with their joy and their sorrow, but they always remembered Death's words and took comfort from their hearts, which grieved and cried, but never broke. So they might be sad, but they know good things will come. And it says Glenn Ringtved is a best-selling, award-winning Danish children's author, and with more than 40 books for children and young adults. His books have been translated, and he lives in the north of Denmark. So it's an awesome book. One thing I was going to read one more. So just kind of an awesome book, talks about death, but I think we can kind of think about this for the pandemic as well. It's really sad, but I think when we finally get to see each other, it'll be so much happier because we realized how much we've missed each other, and how much we need each other. So just a really good book that kind of explains when we're going through rough things, the sunshine will come again. The sun will come out tomorrow. Bye!